Good morning and welcome to the regular meeting of City Council for Tuesday, March 2nd, 2021. Meeting announcement. Council will continue to meet virtually until further notice. All meetings will be cablecast on the City channel and live streamed on the City Channel Pittsburgh YouTube channel. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Reverend Burgess. Mr. Coghill. Ms. Gross.
Here.
Mr. Kraus.
Here.
Mr. Lavelle.
Here.
Mr. O'Connor.
Here.
Mrs. Strasburger.
Here.
Mr. Wilson.
Here.
Mrs. Killsmith, President.
Here.
7 members present.
Thank you, Ashley. As we join from our remote locations, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and remain for a moment of silence. And I would say during our moment of silence, please keep Johnny DeFazio and his family in your thoughts and prayers. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And I just want to say that Johnny DeFazio was.
Anybody hear me?
Pardon me?
I can't hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay, so I just want to say Johnny DeFazio was a county councilman and a wrestler from the Pittsburgh region, well known for his wrestling. And he passed away last week. So I just want to offer our condolences from City Council to his family. And with that said, next order of business is proclamation, and we have one proclamation to be presented from Councilman, or to be read from Councilman Kraus.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam Clerk, again, may we please have it in its entirety? Thank you.
Councilman Kraus presents, whereas Commander Karen Dixon started her career with the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police on April 4th, 1988. And whereas Commander Karen Dixon has a broad background in many divisions of the Bureau, including, but not limited to, major crimes, the Chief's Office, the Training Academy, and service in multiple neighborhood zones. And whereas Karen Dixon's experience and her leadership as lieutenant in the Zone 5 station, especially in aftermath of the Stanton Heights shootings, led her to the helm as a commander in the Zone 3 police station in July of 2015. And whereas Commander Karen Dixon, appreciating the collective diversity of the Zone 3 neighborhoods, cultivated hundreds of sincere relationships with community leaders and residents alike. And whereas, having been described as a guardian for the community and her officers, Commander Karen Dixon struck the perfect balance of being a leader that is both community focused and respected by the rank and file officers under her. And whereas Commander Karen Dixon, understanding the inherent value of a sociable city, led initiatives addressing the unique needs and challenges presented by a robust nighttime economy, implemented state-of-the-art police policy and practices ensuring Pittsburgh's place as national leaders within the realm of responsible hospitality. And whereas the commander leaves behind a greatly appreciated history of trust, safety, and open communication with all who call Zone 3 home. And now therefore be it resolved that Council of the City of Pittsburgh celebrates Commander Dixon's lengthy and impressive career as a public servant, maintaining safety and harmony throughout Pittsburgh's most livable city. And be it further resolved that the Council of the City of Pittsburgh does hereby declare Tuesday, March 2nd, 2021 to be Commander Karen Dixon Day in the City of Pittsburgh.
We have a motion and a second.
Motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Brief comment, Madam President.
Great, proclamations approved. Councilman Kraus, I was just going to ask. you.
Yeah, thank you. So I couldn't let the moment pass without recognizing the service of Commander Karen Dixon. I met her actually my first year in office, so that would have been almost 14 years ago when I was serving as public safety chair, and the commander then was actually in charge of the training academy. And there were some issues around the academy that we were able to work with her on. And like I said, that was almost 14 years ago. And so over those years, we've built a very strong relationship, she and I. And I was delighted when she was promoted to commander and came over into Zone 3 back in 15. So we had almost 6 good years of working with the commander. And as the proclamation states, the third zone, Zone 3, is a collection of very diverse, broadly diverse neighborhoods. It was really under the leadership of Commander Dixon that she was able to bring all the neighborhoods together. She worked diligently to build relationships, not just with leadership, but residents alike. I don't believe there was ever a time that she didn't take a call or that I wasn't available to take a call from her. So she will be greatly missed. We wish her nothing but the very best in her retirement. And at the same time, I'd also like to welcome our new commander, John Fisher. And I know, Council President, you've had an opportunity. I know Councilman Coghill's had an opportunity to speak with him. And we look forward to nothing but the best in the service from our new commander, John Fisher. He has been working diligently to reach out to all the different leadership components of Zone 3. And so I know he's got a lot on his plate right now, but he's juggling all of those responsibilities really well. So I just want to thank again Commander Dixon, wish her nothing but the best in her retirement, and welcome John Fisher, and wish him nothing but the best and successes, new leadership for the Zone 3 police station. Thank you. Thanks, Madam President.
Thank you. And I just want to also add to that, echo all your comments. I think that Commander Dixon has done an amazing job in Zone 3, and she was always so even keeled. I mean, it didn't matter whether she was talking to the kids at Ream Rec, whether she was talking to the residents on Grandview Avenue, whether she was talking to the business owners on Shiloh. She was always the same. I mean, she was just so consistent on who she was. And I think that made people trust her a lot, because you got the same reaction no matter who you were. And I think that really built up a lot of trust in her, and she did stand by the community and made sure that she could address concerns and stood by her officers simultaneously. But somehow she had some of the, if you've noticed, some of the great PR we've been getting about officers, they've been from her zone. Several times they've been from Zone 3, and I think it's because she also set an expectation of what she wanted from her officers, and that was to work with the community and to go above and beyond, and they certainly have in many cases. And so I want to thank her for that and setting the tone. But I also want to say I'm looking forward to working with John Fisher. I've worked with him before in the past with the Weed and Seed program in the area. And one of the things I like about him is he's an officer that lives in the city of Pittsburgh. He actually lives in District 2, but I like that I like when we have somebody who actually cared enough to stay in the city. And so I just wanted to say I'm looking forward to working with him as well, and wish Commander Dixon the best of luck. And thank you for your staff for putting together a great proclamation to honor her. Okay. Anyone else?
Madam President?
Is Councilman, I'm sorry, Councilman Coghill, I should have called you first. I apologize.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to also, thank Commander Dixon for her years of service. She was very, responsive to me. I had a great conversation with Commander Fisher as well. He comes with a wealth of experience, and, we talked about the issues plaguing, the Carrick and Brownsville Road area. And thank you, Councilman Kraus, for that proclamation. That was great.
Yeah. Thanks, Councilman. One bit of information we didn't share is that she and John Fisher were actually from the same graduating class, and so they have the same length of experience of service in the Bureau of Police, which I believe we said dated back to 1984. Did I say that correctly? 88. Yeah, so they both have a wonderful history of service to the Bureau. So. Appreciate it. Thanks, Councilman, very much.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And the next proclamation is from myself. Madam.
Councilwoman Smith presents, now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the City of Pittsburgh does hereby commend women in data science for enlightening and influencing the public in the field of data science. And be it further resolved that the Council of the City of Pittsburgh does hereby declare March 10th, 2021 to be Women in Data Science Day in the City of Pittsburgh.
Thank you. Can we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank- All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Proclamation is approved. Any comments? None for myself either. So that moves us on to our next order of business, which is public comment. Let me read our little statement here. I want to thank everyone for registering to speak, and I would like to remind everyone that the rules of council state that comments are limited to matters of concern, official action, or deliberations which are or may be before city council. Profanity will not be permitted, and nor will threats be permitted. May we have the first speaker, please, Madam Clerk?
Eileen Nadzum.
Eileen?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Good
Can you hear me?
morning. We can hear you now. Thank you.
Oh, good morning. Good morning. I'm glad you can hear me, right?
Yes, good
Can you
morning.
hear me?
Yes,
Okay, all right. So, all right. Now, I don't know. Can you see me or not?
let me see. I'll tell you if I see you.
Okay, it doesn't matter. I'm not so good to look at. I just wondered. Okay,
No,
so
your camera's off,
it's
but your
all,
microphone is on. Your camera's off, microphone's on, so please continue.
okay. So I am joining today because I participated in the Zoom bike path proposal meeting this past Wednesday for Squirrel Hill and Shady Side Corridor. And I want you to know, I did send an email to them and still have not received a reply. Now, according to them, in a survey, only 2% of city residents ride bikes. And I'm sure it's less than that when it is cold, rainy, snowy, or icy. What I'd like to know, why are so many city resources being used for only 2% of the population? We can't even seem to salt the roads to keep people safe. And I believe this issue, like the library and the park conservancy, needs to be put to a vote, not decided on for the benefit of 2% of the population and the possible detriment of the other 98% of people who live here. I don't understand why we have all these city resources being used for this small part of the population. If traffic congestion is a problem, why not improve the bus service or create small shuttle services to alleviate the problem? This would service people of all age groups, including children, the aged, handicapped, and ill. We have many people who cannot ride bikes for various reasons. We have many people who seek medical treatment here, and you need bus or auto transportation, which needs to be improved. The only thing that I and other homeowners that I know and other people I know have seen these bike poles and bike paths do for so far is to inconvenience the auto and bus drivers, back up traffic, and create safety issues, even for pedestrians. You can't have children being picked up by their parents. You can't have bike riders driving in the middle of the night feeling safe. And you know what? Do the bikes even carry insurance? Like, who pays if they cause an accident? And I've seen plenty that they have almost caused. Do they have registration fees? Do they have anything that will help to maintain the roads? I am asking the city council to unify and to stop this project until true traffic studies have done. All they've done are traffic counts, which have nothing to do with backing up traffic. True traffic studies. And until homeowners who live along those paths are surveyed about their opinion and their estimation on the safety issues and on the impact it's going to have on these roads and on these drivers. I've seen personally going down Forbes Hill, a bike rider going down, hitting a pothole. The kid flew off the bike. Everybody stopped. And fortunately, he was safe. Fortunately, he was okay. But you can't have.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Allison Chickus, followed by Xander Orenstein.
Hi, I'm Allison. And my name's Alex Sawyer.
And I'm Vanessa Witkowski.
We're with Liberty National. Thanks for having us today. We're really excited to be joining you. I know we're on limited time, so Vanessa is going to go ahead and take it away.
Okay, thanks for having us today. So our company is Liberty
Registered speaker, no. You can speak one at a time. Registered speakers, please.
Okay. So we are from the company Liberty National, and we work with a lot of cities and boroughs. And what we do is we provided them some employee benefits that were no cost to the employer and saved them on some taxes. So we do offer a unique life benefit. It is completely unique to our company. So the employees have the option to pick up. It gives them coverage to the age of 100 with the option to pay it up at 65. So one less thing for them to be worrying about once they retire. It is completely portable. So when they do leave the job for whatever reason, it'll go with them and nothing will change. So premiums won't increase, benefit amounts won't decrease. And the first $50,000 of it is pre-tax, which is where the employer is seeing the most tax savings, and every dollar they're spending towards this product is something that won't count towards FICA and FUTA and other payroll taxes. We do also offer some other health products. I know we are on limited time here, so I won't go into as great detail with those because the life is the most important thing as to why people have brought us in to work with them. But basically the way it works is if you chose to work with us, we would come in and sit down one-on-one with each employee at a time for 10 minutes about. And then we also do 2 free introductory offers for each employee as well, an accidental death coverage and a discount card. So the accidental death coverage is $3,000 for each employee, $3,000 for their spouse, and $1,000 per dependent child. And then they also get a discount card that gives them up to 85% off on vision and hearing, prescription drugs, and chiropractic care. They get those regardless of if they pick anything else up. But yeah, we'll send an email though with the rest of the information. That way, we stay in our little time limit here. But do you guys have any questions before we send that over to you guys?
The council doesn't correspond back and forth. This is your time to speak to us.
Okay. That's all we have for you then, and we will send an email then with the rest of the information to you guys.
Thank you. And let me just to be clear, speakers have to register in advance individually for their time so that our people in the IMP department in the clerk's office have the names of the speakers. So I apologize if it seemed a little bit abrupt there, but I want to make sure that we're following the council rules. But you're welcome to register every Tuesday and Wednesday and anytime we have meetings individually to speak. So, and then if you send the email to the clerk's office, she'll make sure that that information gets to all the members. Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
We have Xander Orenstein, followed by Emily DeFerrari.
Hello, can everyone
Hi.
hear me?
How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy during the pandemic. People becoming unhoused while the pandemic is ongoing poses an increased public health risk both to the person losing their home as well as to the community, as they'll have to seek other immediate housing options, all of which make following safe practices during COVID impossible. As such, a strong moratorium on evictions is in the interest of public health and safety, so I strongly urge the council to adopt Councilwoman Gross's proposed amendments to the eviction moratorium. Thank you. I cede my time.
Thank you. Have a good day. Next speaker, please.
We have Emily DeFerrari, followed by Joy Sable.
Emily? Emily,
Sorry, I didn't real, yeah, I just found my mute button. I apologize. Good morning, everybody. Thanks to the members of council and the folks in the community who are working to protect us during this pandemic. I'm speaking in favor of Councilperson Gross's amendments to the Pittsburgh Code of Ordinances. I also acknowledge that each of us at this meeting is living on land once inhabited by people who have been dispossessed, people whose tribal names most of us don't remember or know how to pronounce. We do, however, know the names of those most vulnerable to loss during this pandemic because they are part of us. They are our community, they are Pittsburghers. When we put on a victim scale, as Councilperson Cale Smith has alluded to, those who are renting against those who are rented from, the most immediate risk of loss of home lands squarely on the side of the renters. The recovery from eviction and homelessness is a long, perhaps unattainable slog. The recovery for the landlord is promised in relief, which is soon to arrive in the federal aid package. The burden has been shouldered so disproportionately by poor and working people in this pandemic. Certainly landlords also have a share of this burden, but it doesn't compare to the disaster of eviction. Multiple evictions will prolong what is already going to be a slow uphill recovery for our community. These amendments will help us get there a little more equitably. Please vote in favor. Thank you.
next speaker, please.
We have Joy Sable, followed by Belkis Rahim.
There we go. Joy Sable, Point Breeze. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay. I have spoken before about why this is not the time to displace people, and Councilwoman Gross's amendments go a long way towards that. So as well as being in support of that, I more generally want to make sure, I don't think the Post-Gazette has covered, as well as some other city newspapers, the issue of new virus variants that have already arisen elsewhere and are moving around the globe and the country, but also the fact that every single round of replication of the virus is another chance for new mutations to arise. It's not something that is specific to one place or another place. So we may speak of the Brazil variant, which is up to twice as easily transmissible and can reinfect equally or more seriously up to 50% of people who have already had the original version of COVID. But that doesn't mean that variant can only arise in Brazil. We speak of the California variant. We speak of the New York variant. New York, that's pretty close to us. We speak of the British variant, which is due to become the dominant variant in the US by the end of this month, and is roughly 30 to 50% more transmissible. I want to make the point, that every person who gets it and has a chance to transmit it is not just transmitting COVID in general, they are providing a place for new variants to arise. It is in everyone's interest to make everybody safer. And also, secondly, that all of the regulations and planning that we do for schools or anything else, that those numbers look backwards. Statistics look backwards at what we have already experienced. But as a biologist, as someone who uses evolution as a concept on a daily basis, I want to point out that viruses are evolving all the time. It's not strictly correct to say they evolve forwards, but they evolve in ways that make them more transmissible on average as a general core rule of biology. I want you to take that into account when setting regulations, not just for evictions, which obviously you don't want people displaced and spreading COVID, but also for all of the other things that you consider. We look backwards and viruses evolve forwards. Thank you very much.
thank you. And the next speaker, please.
We have Belkis Rahim, followed by Gio Maroon and Jessica Fuqua.
I do not see.
I don't see
Belkis.
Belkis. Then we have Gio Maroon,
I do see Gio.
followed by Jessica Fuqua and Mel Packer.
Okay.
Hi, can you-
Gio? Yes.
Hey, I'm Gio Maroon. I live in Squirrel Hill. I also want to speak about the eviction moratorium. Council has the power to save lives in a very direct way by adopting Councilwoman Gross's amendments to this moratorium. We've seen that allowing evictions during a pandemic drastically increases the rate of death for those evicted. And it's really as simple as that. Nobody should be sentenced to death for being unable to pay rent in a pandemic and an economic crisis, even if their landlord comes up with some other creative reason to evict them, as those of us who have been speaking to tenants and going to magistrate courts since the fall have unfortunately seen on numerous occasions. And if a landlord is going to try and evict someone amid a pandemic, at the very least, the burden of proving an exception should be on the landlord. It should not be on the tenant to get together the paperwork to prove that they deserve shelter. I all fall through working with tenants to try and make sure that they knew their rights under the CDC moratorium. I found again and again that people are navigating a system that is intended to either confuse them or to wear them down until they just give up, whether that was the eviction process or the process to access relief funds that left millions of dollars unspent because people couldn't navigate the bureaucracy that was around it. Council has the chance to change this for the better. People should not be forced to choose between keeping their job or missing a work shift to go to an eviction hearing that maybe won't be allowed to go forward anyway. And unlike the amendments that the mayor's office has put forward, Councilwoman Gross's amendments prevent tenants from having eviction filings on their records for life, which can affect their ability to access housing in the future. It would also ease the burden on local courts and keep the people who are working there safer as well. Relief is on the way to help out those smaller landlords who do have financial concerns as well. But in the meantime, it should be a no-brainer. Adopting Councilwoman Gross's amendments will save the lives of dozens and maybe hundreds of Pittsburghers across every district in the city. Please adopt these amendments. Thank you.
Thank you. And next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Jessica Fuqua, followed by Mel Packer and Andre Del Valle.
Hi, I'm Jessica. I live in
Morning.
Pittsburgh. I have come to make public comment today to not only support Deborah Gross's proposed amendments, but also to ask everyone on this council to make more of them and truly expand this to be a true moratorium on evictions, and also ask to focus on providing real renter relief, not relief that depends on means testing and bureaucracy. I'm so glad that the biologist Joy came into this meeting, because her public comment reminded this council that evictions are not only immoral, but make no epidemiological sense. All evictions need to stop. All eviction hearings need to stop. Eviction hearings in themselves are death-making super spreader events. If you go to any magistrate court right now, you have families, whole families packed into small indoor spaces. I mean, does the council really want this to continue in any form? And I really believe that the burden of proof should be on the landlord to get an exception, rather than having to asking the tenant to furnish proof that they're low income or they lost their job because of COVID. That's just going to create an unnecessary.
Introducing the new Verizon Business Unlimited plans. Get 5G nation.
I hear some audio interrupting my, okay. Yeah, I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I apologize for whatever that interruption was. Next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Mel Packer, followed by Andre Del Valle and Jennifer Lines.
Hi, this is Mel Packer. I spoke last week as well with some prepared comments this morning. I did not prepare anything. I just want to speak to you briefly in support of Councilwoman Gross's amendments. Give me a thumbs up if you're hearing me, please. Somebody, okay, thank you. We are far, as you all know, we are very far from over this pandemic. If we ever do reach herd immunity, whatever that means, it will still not be over. Millions and millions of people in this nation will be without jobs. Some will be without shelter. In Pittsburgh, thousands of families will be flat broke. They will be deep in debt. Whether or not they get some relief, they will still be deep in debt. There will still be, for some people, back rent due. There will be credit cards due. Many people are using credit cards with exorbitant interest rates just to try and pay that rent. There will be loan payments due for students. There will be car payments due. It's not going to be over. The road to recovery, whatever recovery means, will be very long, slow, and rocky, and full of many advances and retreats. It may be 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It may be the reverse of that. Shelter, above all, must be guaranteed for the residents of Pittsburgh, for the families of Pittsburgh, for the children of Pittsburgh. Millions of dollars are coming in a few weeks from relief bills that are certain to pass. Yes, there may be some changes, but there's still a lot of money coming. Some of that will make up for many of the mom and pop, if not more, if not all of the mom and pop landlords will be made whole through those relief bills. I'm fully in favor of supporting those mom and pop landlords. I get that, all right? The larger ones, many of those will do just fine without the help. But as I said last week, this is one of the great moral issues of our day. Do we or do we not protect tenants, families, and children? Do we or do we not believe that human beings have a right to shelter? If we believe that, then we need to support Councilwoman Gross's amendments, which is the only way to offer that full protection. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Andre Del Valle and Jennifer Lines.
Andre?
Hi, good morning, City Council. Yep, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Council President and members of the City Council. My name is Andre Del Valle, and I'm the Director of Government Affairs for the Pennsylvania Apartment Association, commenting on Bill number 2021-1237, introduced by Councilwoman Gross. The Pennsylvania Apartment Association is the largest owner-manager association here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We did submit our written testimony to the Chief Clerk, so I'll keep my remarks brief this morning. But after speaking with our members, we do believe that the legislation as introduced creates a number of challenges to landlords and our courts post-moratorium by not providing any exceptions for landlords who have been trying to evict bad actors prior to the emergency declaration being implemented, as well as those who create harmful environments for themselves or others, given that the courts are currently closed. Although there is language currently written in the legislation in section 782, subsection 02C, there is no enforcement ability given the courts have extended their emergency declaration now through June 30th, 2021 to hear landlord-tenant cases. We do appreciate Councilwoman's spirit in the legislation and her commitment to help the residents of Pittsburgh to prevent them from losing their homes, which is something that we're all trying to avoid. I'd like to thank the sponsor for having your team meet with us and share our concerns last Friday, and hope we can work on amendments that would provide certain exemptions that would assist our landlords and our courts, and look forward to collaborating with the Councilwoman and this legislative body in the future. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify, and I will make myself available for any questions after. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Jennifer Lines, followed by Bailey Brown and Carol Hardiman.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Apologies in advance if I talk fast. I prepared some remarks and now I have a couple more things to say. First of all, council people, we can see when you've unmuted. So if you're doing something else and a video plays with sound, we're aware that you don't take the concerns of your constituents seriously. We have eyes. Secondly, to the person who's talking before, the burden of proof should be on the landlords. As someone that has personally called and dealt with tenants that were facing unjust evictions because the landlords, understanding that they could find exceptions by claiming that their tenants were bad actors, got through with evictions anyways. There is a body count associated with what you are doing. City Council, I called in last week, I called in today, and you have my sincere promise that if you pass Councilperson Gross's amendments and save the lives of countless tenants in the city of Pittsburgh, I will call in next week to thank you. When I spoke last week, I told you one of the harrowing stories I dealt with as a volunteer of the Pittsburgh Union of Regional Renters. I'm not going to do the same this week, not with specificity, because I don't believe the lives of my neighbors are political fodder. You deserve to know just how much your constituents are suffering. This is true. But the legislation put forward by Councilwoman Gross demonstrates that you do, in fact, know this. You know the stakes, you know the numbers, and you know, most importantly, what you can do to mitigate those. Next week, planned evictions will take the lives of at least 4 Pittsburghers. Sounds small, but I believe you'd be hard-pressed to name 4 citizens that you'd be comfortable facing and telling them that that is their fate. One life is too many, and we are far past one life. This legislation has become a question of power. We are seeing an 11th hour push from the mayor to do once again the bare minimum. It's ketchup on brass. It's Hunt's ketchup on brass. He's trying to polish something so that we think it's golden, and it isn't. Don't let him take away your power to protect your people. Councilwoman Gross has constructed legislation that can protect the people of Pittsburgh. Give your fellow enough power. Give yourselves enough power to do what is right. Peduto is sweating about his reelection, as well he should. But you face reelection too, and it is my hope that every politician in the city of Pittsburgh plans to earn it. And I mean it about calling in next week. I'll sing you a song, I'll tell you a joke, I'll lead a deep breathing exercise, whatever you want. I am tired of calling in to beg for the lives of my neighbors, and I'm certain you are tired of hearing me and hearing us do so. So please pass these amendments. Protect the tenants that are facing evictions and facing death. Protect the scared small landlords that have 15 months of back pay on the way. Protect the children, the elderly, the disabled, the sick, all of those dependent on housing to save our lives. Protect us, protect yourselves, and protect Pittsburgh. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Bailey Brown, followed by Carol Hardiman and Luke Watkins.
Good morning, City Council. Your friend Bailey Brown. I am out here right now, in fact, at the Magisterial District Court in Forest Hills, who unfortunately will not be aided by your moratorium. However, I am here once again to urge you to pass with all of Councilwoman Gross's amendments. We need this. I'm really here to ask you what's up. Where do we stand? You know, I've been tuning in steadfast for 3 weeks now and talking to you. And I saw that last week there was a pretty steady quorum, as I perceived it, that we needed to move forward with these amendments. And then, as I perceived it, Councilwoman Cale Smith was like, well, you know, let's go into executive session once again with the legal department. So I really want to know what came of it. We can't water this down. We can't afford to. You're hearing the viewpoints 3 weeks on end. The people really need your help, and we can't stand down. I too will call in to thank you. And I would love to hear a direct update on where we stand as related to last week, because I did hear a very firm commitment from council to doing hard work around this, and I do thank you for that. But I want to know where we stand. Please pass with the amendment. Thank you. I cede.
Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Carol Hardiman, followed by Luke Watkins and Jess Ansel.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Carol Hardiman, and I am a Hill District resident and also employee with Hill District Consensus Group. And I'm here to ask your support and of Deb Gross's amendment. And also just to remind you that we're in a public housing and epidemic crisis. And so evictions will cause more of the pandemic to rise, because when renters or anyone is evicted and living on the street, they won't be able to social distance, wash their hands, keep up with their hygiene needs. And also the evictions are really affecting a lot of African-American females in particular with children. And so children's education will be interrupted, and as well as females that are already working low wage paying jobs, they won't be able to keep up with going to work. So I'm just hoping that you will consider, doing the right thing. Of course, Deb Gross, she has really been going up and beyond and listening to the advocates and other supporters. And so I'm praying and I'm hoping that you will support her as we are scrambling to find the cure and get everyone vaccinated in the days to come. But please consider putting evictions on hold. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Luke Watkins, followed by Jess Ansel and Jacob Klinger.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, good morning. Continue, please.
Good morning. Hi. So other people on the call are going to be able to provide like better data and better arguments. I don't really have anything prepared. I'm just here to ask you to support Deborah Gross's amendment to the eviction moratorium. It's really simple. We shouldn't be evicting people in the middle of winter, in the middle of a pandemic. That's it. I ask you all to like say that out loud and try to find something that's wrong with that argument, is that we shouldn't be evicting people in the middle of winter, in the middle of a pandemic. I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good day. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Jess Ansel, followed by Jacob Klinger and Carmen Brown.
Hi, can you hear me? This is Jess.
Yes, good morning.
Hi. So this is Jess Ansel. I live in the Point Breeze North neighborhood right now, and I'm fully in support of Deb Gross's amendments. Just a couple of reasons why. We have heard that Pittsburgh is one of the worst cities to live in for Black women. And not to say that the experience of every Black resident is the same, right? Because it's not, but Black women and women in general are more likely to be leaseholders disproportionately. And I know this from years of just assisting renters in this city, right? Going to court, like as a community advocate for them against landlords and seeing how common evictions are. I'm also assisting the Pittsburgh Union of Regional Renters, right? Occasionally with this work. And the damage of evictions lasts a long time. So when you evict one family, right, you're not just hurting that family in the moment, but you're disrupting all their community networks that they might have with other people in the neighborhood too. So what if, they were the person who checked on someone's children when that person had to work late? Or what if they were the person who gave their elderly neighbor a ride to the doctor when that person needed rides? Like lower income people rely on these things more because they can't pay for this. And so you're disrupting a whole community when you just evict one family, and it takes so long for that family to recover as well. Like I feel for landlords who need the money, but I don't think this is the right way. You should work on giving relief to landlords and not disrupting families in the process. And just, we know Pittsburgh has a legacy of racist displacement. If you look up the public source article by Jerry Dickinson recently, right, you can see more about this. So this is your chance to make a very small difference on that large issue by really taking a strong stand to disrupt any evictions with Deb Gross's proposal. So I urge you to pass it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Jacob Klinger, followed by Carmen Brown and Prem Rajgopal.
Thank you. Jacob, is Jacob with us?
Hey, y'all. My name is Jacob. My pronouns are he and him. I'm with the Pittsburgh Union of Regional Renters. Calling you from my second job right now. I'm speaking in favor of Deb Gross's amendments, and I'm going to be really simple about it. You do not prevent evictions by sending people to eviction court. That is what Mayor Peduto's proposal does. I should say Mayor Peduto's 11th hour proposal, but we'll get back to that. I think a lot of that's been covered. Crucially, Deb Gross's amendments cut off evictions pre-filing with exceptions that landlords can apply for. Every nightmare scenario that you've had painted for you about a small mom and pop landlord with like a nightmare demon living in their apartment that they signed a lease for, like, can be accounted for by the thing that Deb Gross has put in front of you and the thing that at least 5 of you were in favor of last night. We were talking about a compromise that honestly, many of y'all have been quite helpful in getting to. And again, thank you for that. You know, you've been hearing from us for 3 weeks, so you know the needless dangers of sending hundreds of people to court when debts can be paid off in weeks here. I don't know why the mayor is proposing, you know, a loophole to that end. I know it's the second time in 3 weeks his office has dumped a more reckless proposal than the one in front of you on you at the 11th hour. But I want to look deeper than that, because what his proposal also does is affirms your legal authority to do the thing he was already about to do with Deb Gross. And this is actually an easy decision. I know y'all know that. Bobby, there was a woman, a single mother in your district who was the centerpiece of a public source story yesterday, who her landlord was trying to kick her out for the second time this pandemic, in part using the excuse that there had been a domestic violence call at her house, which she did not initiate. She's having to fight this. We're helping her out. We raised some money, but we're one people, and Rich Lord's a hell of a reporter, but he didn't just find the one person in your district or the one person in Pittsburgh that's dealing with this. Dozens, hundreds. I know because our phone rings off the hook with it all the time. I got to call Miss Carol back after this because of the guy down Kirkpatrick Street whose landlord is trying to kick him out because he's quote unquote a nuisance. He's not a nuisance, he's autistic. All right. These are the people that the mayor's proposals are trying to put on the street. That is the only reason for those loopholes to be there. Anyway, Reverend Burgess, I was moved by some of the things you said last week about federal subsidies and who's trying to do what to people in your neighborhood. Her's been all over. Look, this is so simple. I don't think you need to leave a pathway to kill people, and I don't think you want to do that. I think you should be an independent body for the mayor's office. I think you know that. I think you can know the thing. I know you can do the thing that Deb Gross is putting in front of you. The mayor's office already told you that. I mean, just like honestly, like respect yourselves and get this thing done. Shout out to a bunch of you who are underestimated at the beginning of this process. Like, I don't know, keep proving me wrong and like get it done here.
Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Carmen Brown, followed by Prem Rajgopal and Shaman Pomai.
Could you call the name one more time, please?
Sure. Carmen Brown. I don't see her on.
I don't see Carmen.
The next speaker is Prem Rajgopal, followed by Shaman Pomai.
Hey, Prem.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, good morning.
Morning. So my name is Prem Rajgopal. I'm a resident in Oakland, and I wanted to speak in favor of Deb Gross's amendments, and I also wanted to speak to the 11th hour amendments that the mayor's office kind of proposed. I think the previous speakers have really outlined the facts and why we need to pass Deb Gross's amendments, but this 11th hour change of a watered down version of what needs to happen is just so classic Bill Peduto that it really bothers me. It really reminded me of the process for the Columbus statue removal, which I was extremely involved in, and how the mayor stepped in at times like a day before a meeting and tried to dictate how things should go on his own terms. And I think that all of you should respect yourselves enough to not just fall in line with whatever he wants you to do. You guys have the power to save lives. You have the power to help people. Pass Deb Gross's amendments because they're important for the community and the people you represent. And the last point I want to make is I think it is disgusting the amount of money that goes into a lot of your various campaigns from developers and from those in the landlord category who are obviously trying to buy their way into exercising control over tenants that is both morally wrong and terrible from the public health standpoint and all of the other reasons that were outlined by previous speakers. I wanted to thank all the folks at PER for all the work they've been doing to really do the type of work that should have been being done by the government and our city officials and have been failing, and that has been failed in terms of the results that we've seen on our communities. Thank you. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Shaman Pomai, followed by Clara Weibel and Robert Damewood.
Greetings, everyone. Can I be heard?
Yes, good morning.
Greetings, greetings. So first, I'd like to also give honor to the commissioner that was mentioned earlier. I'm not a resident or a citizen. I am an Aborigine American Indian as a member of the Iroquois Confederacy of Aborigine American People, although we can identify people who do good work by the people. And I would like to also commend that woman as well. I also would like to commend Deb Gross. Although, again, I am not a citizen, I see the work that she has done for the people, for your constituents, and that is also recognized by myself and my nation. And I also would like to say, in addition, that I do support the people who are going through these horrible times in this pandemic with housing and renting situations. I will say this, that I myself, as an Aborigine and the descendant of the Aborigines who faced the very first pandemic that happened on our lands, which was genocide. And still we are feeling those still effects of those same actions by many people. My egregious act that was placed upon me by the Pittsburgh City Police in response of the Office of Municipal Investigation, and I read that they, as a member and a manager of the Office of Municipal Investigations, that within the structure of the city of Pittsburgh, and they ruled according to the city's home rule charter. Well, I will say that what they failed to do was what the home rule charter states is the city of Pittsburgh has all home rule powers and may perform any function and exercise any power not denied by the Constitution. And my rights were definitely denied by the Constitution on video, and there's much evidence to support that. And they failed to do that. Also, the oath of office, that every elected official and officer and every appointee before commencing official duty shall take and subscribe the following oath. They do solemnly swear and affirm that they will support the Constitution of the United States. And I, as an Aborigine American Indian, and excluding Indians not taxed according to the Constitution's Bouvier's dictionary, says that Indians are the Aboriginal people that were here in the United States. So thus, again, appeal to City Council to hold the Office of Municipal Investigations and Aaron Bruni and the investigator at such accountable for failing to hold up their oath and for failing to honor their oath, sworn oath to the Constitution. And I yield.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Clara Weibel, followed by Robert Damewood.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. My name is Clara, and I live in District 1. I work with the Human Rights City Alliance, and we've been thinking a lot about what the human right to housing would look like in our city. We know that it certainly wouldn't look like the response we've seen so far in regards to the constant and growing wave of evictions filed in Pittsburgh. I appreciate that the mayor recently made amendments, but I'm speaking today to urge council to support Deb Gross's amendments to Pittsburgh's eviction moratorium. The specific component I want to uplift is that Gross's amendments stop new filings of evictions, which is the most genuine and legitimate way to respond to the housing crisis we are in. People facing evictions are already burdened enough trying to get by during a once-in-a-century pandemic and shouldn't be punished with eviction filings on their records, which would still happen under Peduto's amendments. By stopping the eviction process upstream, you'd be easing the burden of local courts and saving them money while also keeping Pittsburghers housed and safe. If we can stop evictions at the source, why wouldn't we? Please support Gross's amendments to prevent avoidable deaths due to COVID. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Robert Damewood.
Good morning. My name is Bob Damewood. I'm a resident of Mount Washington. I'm also a staff attorney with the Pittsburgh Office of Regional Housing Legal Services. We represent both nonprofit landlords and tenant associations. First, I want to thank you for considering an eviction moratorium. This is sorely needed and it can greatly impact public health if done correctly. I just want to point out that we're not just talking about protecting tenants and their families, we're talking about protecting the community at large. I understand there will be two sets of amendments that could be introduced today. I'm familiar with both. And while both, I believe, would be more effective at protecting public health than the current bill, I ask to support those that will be introduced by Councilwoman Gross. Those amendments will better protect the public health by reducing eviction filings and therefore reducing the need for landlords and tenants to appear in court which other speakers have described as a super spreader event. It involves close personal contact by all involved. They'll also be more effective at stopping evictions by stopping people from getting into the process to begin with. Both sets of amendments would stop evictions at the back end, or at least could, but only Councilwoman Gross's amendments could stop evictions, prevent evictions at the front end. I also want to point out that both sets of amendments would require that somebody develop a process to consider exemptions, either the Commission on Human Relations or the courts. Council has the authority to confer powers and duties upon the Commission on Human Relations under Section 216E of the Home Rule Charter. Council has no such authority over the courts. Also, under Councilwoman Gross's amendments, eviction filings would be slowed for the 2 to 3 weeks while that exemption process is being developed. Under the other set of amendments, eviction filings could go forward that time. So choosing the path that will slow eviction filings will advance public health considerations even more. Finally, I pledge RHLS's support in helping the Human Relations Commission to expeditiously develop a process, and I know others will help out as well. So for these reasons, I ask that Council adopt Councilwoman Gross's amendments today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That exhausts our list of registered speakers, correct, Madam Clerk?
That is correct.
Thank you very much for your help through that whole process. And that brings us on to our next order of business, which is the presentation of papers. And we have Councilman Reverend Ricky Burgess, Chair of Urban Recreation.
No papers, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman. Good morning.
Good morning.
Councilman Coghill, Chair of Public Works.
Thank you, and good morning, Madam President.
Thank you. Good morning.
Councilman Coghill presents Bill number 1244, resolution granting unto 1717 Fifth LLC their successors and assign the privilege and license to construct, maintain, and use at their own cost and expense 3 structural canopies at 1709 Fifth Avenue, 3rd Ward, 6th Council District. Bill number 1245, resolution granting unto University of Pittsburgh their successors and assigns the privilege and license to construct, maintain, and use at their own cost and expense a projecting sign at 3525 Forbes Avenue in the 4th Ward, 3rd Council District. Bill number 1246, resolution providing for a supplemental agreement with the Michael Baker for contract administration and construction inspection service costs associated with the small grants projects agreement and providing for the payment of costs thereof relating to Allegheny Circle Phase 2, not to exceed $140,085.42, is a 0 increase from the previous agreement.
Thank you, Councilwoman Gross, Chair of Intergovernmental Affairs.
Madam President.
Councilwoman Gross presents Bill number 1247, resolution adopting plan revision to the City of Pittsburgh's official sewer facilities plan for the Safe Investments US Wharton Street project. Bill number 1248, ordinance authorizing the city to enter into an intergovernmental cooperation agreement with the Bureau of Mount Oliver with regard to the city providing emergency medical services to the bureaus pursuant to the General Local Government Code. Compensation shall be $45,000 over a 3-year term. Bill number 1249, ordinance authorizing the city to enter into an intergovernmental cooperation agreement with the Bureau of Wilkinsburg for providing fire and emergency management services to the Bureau pursuant to the General Local Government Code and the Emergency Management Services Code. Bill number 1250, resolution approving execution of a contract for disposition by sale of land between the URA and the Pittsburgh Housing Authority Corporation for the sale of Block 27B, Lot 72, located at 800 Bryn Mawr Road in the 5th Ward of the City Council District number 6. Bill number 1251, resolution authorizing the URA to acquire all the city's right, title, and interest, if any, in into the following publicly owned property in the 13th Ward of the city, designated in the Deed Registry Office of Allegheny County as Block 174J, Lot 308, located at 803 North Homewood Avenue, Council District Number 9. Bill number 1252, resolution approving execution of a contract for disposition by sale of land between the URA and Bree Piper for the sale of Block 50M, Lot 208, located on the south side of Hillcrest Street, east of North Graham Street, 11th Ward, Council District Number 9. Bill number 1253, resolution authorizing the URA to acquire all the city's right, title, and interest, if any, and to the following publicly owned properties in the 5th Ward of the city, designated in the Deed Registry Office of Allegheny County as Block 26P, lots 156 and 157, located on the south side of Adadell Street and east of Wichita Way, Council District Number 6. Bill number 1254, resolution authorizing the URA to acquire all the city's right, title, and interest, if any, in and to the following publicly owned properties in the 25th Ward of the city, designated in the Deed Registry Office of Allegheny County as Block 23B, lots 196, 198, 199, 220, 223, and 224, located between Federal Street on the east and Perrysville Avenue on the west, just south of where Federal Street becomes Federal Street Extension, Council District Number 6. Bill number 1255, resolution authorizing the URA to acquire all the city's right, title, and interest, if any, in and to the following publicly owned properties in the 11th Ward, designated in the Deed Registry Office of Allegheny County as Block 83A, Lot 32, located on the east side of North Aiken Avenue, north of Black Street, with the part of said property being more particularly located between Blocks 83A, Lot 48, and Blocks 83A, Lot 51, Council District Number 9.
Thank you. And Councilman Kraus, Chair on Human Resources.
Good morning, Madam President.
Good morning.
No new
Councilman.
papers.
Okay, thank you. And Councilman Lavelle, Chair of Finance and Law.
Madam President.
Thank you.
Councilman Lavelle presents Bill number 1256, resolution providing for the sale of certain property acquired by the city of Pittsburgh, tax sale items A through F, 2832 Wiley, 501 Industry, 204 Walter, 1 Bright Ridge, 1529 Brighton, and 2479 North Charles. Bill number 1257, resolution repealing items and resolutions approved on various dates, which authorizes sale of property in various wards of the city due to an incompletion of sale. Items A, 2018 Perrysville. Bill number 1258, resolution providing for the conveyance by the city of certain property having been placed for sale to adjourning property owners in conjunction with the City of Pittsburgh Side Yard Program items A through B, 1735 McCullough and 1742 Brighton.
Thank you. And we have Councilman O'Connor, Chair of Public Safety Services.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman. Good morning.
Good morning.
Councilman O'Connor presents Bill number 1259, resolution authorizing the issuing of a warrant in favor of Allegheny Inquine in an amount not to exceed $6,124.99 for animal care services provided for the City Bureau of Police Mounted Unit. Bill number 1260, resolution providing for the issuing of a warrant in favor of Sensible Products in an amount of $21,257 for the equipment mounting kits equipment for the new Spencer engines for the Fire Bureau.
And Councilwoman Strasburger, Chair of Innovation, Performance, and Asset Management.
No new papers, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And Councilman Wilson, Chair of Land Use and Economic Development.
Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman. Good morning.
Good morning.
Councilman Wilson presents Bill number 1261, resolution further amending resolution number 840 entitled Resolution Adopting and Approving the 2020 Capital Budget and the 2020 CDBG program and the 2020 through 2025 Capital Improvement Program, so as to identify specific projects in City Council District 3 and authorize a subsequent agreement for operation, administrative expenses, maintenance, purchase of equipment, and or rehabilitation of neighborhood facilities on behalf of the residents of the city.
And then myself, for Chair of Hearings, I have no new papers. That moves us on to unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business before council? Seeing none, that moves us on to the reports of committee for final action. Councilman Lavelle, Committee on Finance and Law.
Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman.
Councilman Lavelle presents Bill number 1238, report of the Committee on Finance and Law for February 24, 2021, with an affirmative recommendation. Bill number 1203, resolution authorizing pursuant to Chapter 210 of the City Code, the mayor and director of the Department of Parks and Recreation to accept a donation from Allegheny County of the installation Wi-Fi hotspots at the McKinley and Phillips Recreation Center and 24 months of internet service valued at $43,703.24 to offer free Wi-Fi to the surrounding community.
You've heard the reading of the title of the bill. Is there any discussion on the bills?
Just briefly, Madam President. May I? I just want to once again recognize the importance of bringing Wi-Fi to McKinley Rec and the value that that brings to just not only that rec center, but the surrounding properties and community. And thank again, Director of Parks and Rec, and of course the mayor and the mayor's office for bringing this into fruition. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the bills are now ready for final action. All in favor of the passage will vote aye when the name is called. Those opposed will vote no.
Reverend Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Coghill.
Aye.
Ms. Gross.
Aye.
Mr. Kraus.
Aye.
Mr. Lavelle. Mr. Lavelle.
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor.
Aye.
Ms. Strasburger.
Aye.
Mr. Wilson.
Aye.
Mrs. Kell Smith, President.
Aye.
Ayes 9, noes 0.
The bills having received the legally required number of votes are finally passed. That moves us on to Councilman Corey O'Connor, Committee on Public Safety Services.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman.
Councilman O'Connor presents Bill number 1239, report of the Committee on Public Safety Services for February 24, 2021, with an affirmative recommendation. Bill number 1204, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Public Safety to enter on behalf of the city into a license agreement with SMG and Sports and Exhibition Authority of Allegheny County at a cost not to exceed $750 for the purpose of hosting a Department of Public Safety promotion ceremony at the David L. Lawrence Convention Center on March 4th of 2021.
You've heard the reading of the title of the bill. Is there any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, bills are now ready for final action. All in favor of passage will vote aye when their name is called. Those opposed will vote no. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Reverend Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Coghill.
Aye.
Ms. Gross.
Aye.
Mr. Kraus.
Aye.
Mr. Lavelle.
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor.
Aye.
Ms. Strasburger.
Aye.
Mr. Wilson.
Aye.
Mrs. Kell Smith, President.
Aye.
Ayes 9, noes 0.
The bills having received the legally required number of votes are finally passed. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilman Anthony Coghill, Committee on Public Works.
Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman.
Councilman Coghill presents Bill number 1240, report of the Committee on Public Works for February 24, 2021, with an affirmative recommendation. Bill number 1194, resolution granting unto the University of Pittsburgh their successors and assigns the privilege and license to construct, maintain, and use at their own cost and expense to install 3 new entrance canopies at 5051 Center Avenue, 8th Ward, 7th Council District. Bill number 1195. Resolution granting unto Square View Apartments LP their successors and assigns the privilege and license to construct, maintain, and use at their own cost and expense a projecting sign at 3429 Butler Street, 6th Ward, 7th Council District. Bill number 1197. Resolution granting unto Kara Gok their successors and assigns the privilege and license to construct, maintain, and use at their own cost and expense a new reinforced concrete ADA compliant walk-in surface at 3315 Liberty Avenue, 6th Ward, 7th Council District. Bill number 1205, resolution approving the recommendation made by the Director of the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure that the concrete portion of the Mount Royal Road be paved with asphalt in accordance with section 41706 of the Pittsburgh Code of Ordinances. Bill number 1206, resolution approving the recommendation made by the Director of the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure that Boulevard Drive be paved with asphalt in accordance with section 41706 of the Code of Ordinances.
You've heard the reading of the title of the bills. Is there any discussion on the bills?
Madam President,
Yes.
I am trying to find the bill number. It's 1195. I am going to abstain from Bill 1195. My wife has a financial interest in the Square View Apartments, and therefore I will be abstaining on that bill.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councilman. All in favor? Okay, so the rest of the bills. Any other discussion? Seeing none, the bills are ready for final action. All in favor of the passage, vote aye when the name is called. Those opposed will vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Reverend Burgess,
No on Bill abstain rather on Bill 1195, and then aye on all the bills.
Mr. Coghill,
Aye.
Ms. Gross,
Aye.
Mr. Kraus,
Aye.
Mr. Lavelle,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor,
Aye.
Ms. Strasburger,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mrs. Cal Smith, President.
Aye.
On Bill 1195, ayes 8, 1 abstention. All other bills, ayes 9, no 0.
Thank you. The bills having received the legally required number of votes are finally passed. And that moves us on to Councilman Bobby Wilson's Committee on Land Use and Economic Development.
Madam President,
Thank you, Councilman.
thank you.
Councilman Wilson presents Bill number 1241, report of the Committee on Land Use and Economic Development for February 24th, 2021 with an affirmative recommendation. Bill number 1207, resolution amending resolution number 262, which authorized the mayor and director of city planning to accept a $46,000 grant award from the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources to support the development of a Hill District Park master plan and to combine this funding with the previously budgeted $60,000 city match to enter into contract to hire consultant Groundswell Design Group, Inc. to develop aforementioned master plan with a total contract value not to exceed $106,000. Bill number 1208, resolution further amending resolution number 840, entitled Resolution Adopting and Approving the 2020 Capital Budget and the 2020 CDBG Program and the 2020 through 2025 Capital Improvement Program, so as to identify specific projects in City Council District 7 and authorize a subsequent agreement for operation, administrative expenses, maintenance, purchase of equipment, and or rehabilitation of neighborhood facilities on behalf of the residents of the city. Bill number 1237, ordinance amending Title 7, business licensing, Article 10, rental of residential housing, by including new chapter 782, temporary eviction regulation for disease prevention and control due to COVID-19.
Madam President?
Yeah.
I'd like to,
You have heard the reading, you have heard the reading of the title of the bills. Is there any discussion on the bills?
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to amend Bill 1237.
Second.
Motion, we have a second. Any discussion?
Yes, please.
President? Yes, but I think, I'm sorry, the motion to amend is by substitution as well, and all members have been emailed an attachment from Louise at about 9 minutes after 10 this morning, so that you can be sure that you have the right copy in front of you. Appreciate it.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion?
We do.
Any discussion?
Discussion. Councilwoman Gross, do you wish to go first?
Certainly, I appreciate it. So I just want to revisit briefly some of our comments from last week, and just to remind ourselves of kind of where we stand today. So last week, I'm grateful for all members supporting the provisional language, the provisional vote on the first language that we had in front of us last week. And certainly for everyone co-sponsoring and being willing to roll up your sleeves and put in the hard work. This is a complicated court process that is hard enough for us to understand. And just to remind ourselves, there are hundreds of our constituents going through the court process in great distress, right? In the middle of a global pandemic, once in a 100-year global pandemic, in the middle of winter. We know that most of these are women with children in the household. And here we are struggling to understand the process as legislators safe in our homes, each of us right now. And we are talking about people who are facing eviction. We know that 120 households are already all the way through this long, complicated process. Since last week, in the briefings last week, and in the executive session last week, and in conversations with me last week, you've seen me kind of put up this spreadsheet that by now is full of notes from comments about what are the various moratorium have affected which parts of the court process. But we know 120 households have gotten all the way through this process, all the way down to the levels that the constables could be showing up at their door at any moment. We know that 180 are some way midway through that process. And we know that as we speak, as of the count I got late yesterday, there are 250 more households on the docket with court dates scheduled for March. And already scheduled for April, 142 additional households are scheduled for court appearances. That is 700, nearly 1,000. It is not a laughing matter. What our goal has been now for 6 weeks, since I first drafted language to amend our declaration of emergency, which was in mid-January, is to try to prevent that exact thing from happening, prevent those families from having to enter into, from even getting the first eviction notice on their door, which is the very first square here. Last year, the governor's moratorium did exactly that. He issued a moratorium that prevented households from, no one was allowed to put that notice on your door telling you you have to leave. Some tenants just leave immediately. And so we know that is also happening. We've heard a lot of very moving testimony that I've been talking with advocates and people on the ground for the last 6 weeks hearing, but we've been hearing it now at council about what that process is like and the distress that people are in, and that some households are being evicted, what looks to me, not a lawyer, wrongly and unfairly. That is happening. I think we are all of us trying to do the best policy that we can, but this is your classic type 1 and type 2 error. You know, do we do something so safe that it doesn't protect anyone? Or do we try to move that needle to protect more people than are being protected today? And I think that's where we are with this amendment, is a new draft that tries to increase protections to prevent people from even getting into that flow chart. And I think we have the capacity and the skill sets and the obligation to do so. Doing nothing would be causing more harm, and doing too little would also be causing more harm. So the language that you've had now since last Wednesday is what I just put on the table. It's exactly the same. There is not a single comma or word change. We had the briefing about it on Thursday. We also had executive session about it on Thursday. I had worked, again, from the middle of January through last week until Monday evening a week ago, to arrive at that language with the law department, with members of the advocacy community, with the people kind of doing the frontline work, and with the law department. And I hope you'll support it today. I think it's ready for us to start moving forward. I think that we need to do not only this, there are more things we can also do. We should be putting more dollars out onto the street so that people can pay their rent. We know that is forthcoming. This council has already authorized almost $9 million in additional funds above the millions we've already authorized that have already hit the streets and helped 1,000 households. Again, we know that the households we've already helped, 79% of them were female-headed households with children. And so that was very important work that this council saw fit to do and proactively moved on last year, and that we're expanding the rent relief. And again, other levels of government need to do better at providing rent relief and support to both landlords and tenants. The city has actually done very well, and I'm hopeful for the new partnership to move the additional 9 million, where we're partnering with the county to provide an even more, hopefully, robust outreach so that people do find out about the programs, and an easier application intake process that has more capacity so more people can actually get through that hoop and get the relief that they need to stay in their homes and make themselves whole for both backwards and forward rent and utilities. So that is a very good, positive step as well. And I think maybe we don't even stop here. We can continue to talk and work on whether or not what we put in place today can do what we intend, right? To provide support to the Commission on Human Relations, which would be able to hear appeals. And we heard some calls in our public comment today that there be a better and more clear path for those landlords or tenants or neighbors of tenants that feel that they are in immediate physical harm. There is a path for that in the amendment that we have in front of us. But that we should pay close attention, provide support where we need as a council, provide more clear communications to tenants, to landlords, to all of the advocates and frontline people that are working hard to keep people in their homes so that we all understand the processes in front of us, and provide the dollar resources if needed to the Commission on Human Relations. And I think that with some very modest dollar budget amendments, they can move forward more quickly and robustly. So I just wanted to close with letting you know that the last numbers I shared with you last week about the evictions in each of our districts has already increased since we talked about it a few days ago. And then I will stop and allow other comment, but let me close with this. What we know today is that there are 24 evictions additional on top of the 120 ready to be evicted today and the 120 that have already had a date. There are new dates, 24 in District 1, 18 in District 2, 11 in District 3, 71 in District 4, 16 in District 5, 17 in District 6, 29 in District 7, 15 in District 8, and 49 in District 9. With this amendment by substitution, I hope that we'll vote this through today and that I have your support on that, and that we can continue to have productive conversations about what more we can do or what refinements might be needed in the future. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilman Kraus.
Thank you. So I'll start my comments with, I really want to dispel sort of the suggestion that has risen through 2 weeks of public comment now, that somehow this is an argument of us and them, because it isn't. This council is steadfast in wishing to assist within our legal right to limit evictions that are based within this pandemic. And that is, I believe, the true desire of this administration as well. And there has been a great cooperative effort. I applaud Councilwoman Gross, Assistant Chief of Staff Lindsay Powell, for ongoing, consistent, well into the night work. That does not mean we're always going to agree on everything. That's how government is set up. We're not supposed to agree on everything. We're supposed to bring differing opinions to the table and do our very best to craft what we believe, honestly, to be the best solution for the problems that we are confronted with. So this suggestion that somehow things are dumped at the 11th hour and there's some nefarious action, that's just not at all what's happening. And nor does that mean that the council is entitled to accept things that come in the 11th hour. It's just the part of the process of crafting legislation. So for all of those that called in and everyone that is listening, please put aside this us versus them kind of context, because that is not it. There's been honest, sincere, ongoing dialogue to come to a reasonable and legally defensible solution to the problem of eviction in pandemic. On certain things we will agree, on certain things we will not agree. That is just the process. So I just had to get that off my chest. Having said that, I'm doing my very best. I have 4 different pieces up, and then a piece, Madam President, if you'll permit interrogatory. I just got an email, Councilwoman Gross, from your staff member of a PDF of the amendment. That is not different, correct? That is what we have is what we had last week is what we have now, right? Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because there are 4 different pieces up here between what we, no, I'm sorry, 3 pieces. I have what we had last week. I have what came in late last night. I have an opinion from law. And I don't see a whole lot of differentiations between them. There are some specific recommendations, but that doesn't make either of them 100% right and either of them 100% wrong in any way, shape, or form. I do have a question though, because this is in both versions, and I don't know that we have the authority to do this or not. And again, Madam President, if you'll permit interrogatory with the councilwoman, we're imposing a fine. Thank you. We're imposing a fine of up to $10,000. Do we have? I've run a miss of setting high fines before in legislation that I've written. Do we have the authority to go that high in a fine?
We did go back and forth with the administration on that, and it kind of came after there were conversations with some of the other cities. So they have done it. If I'm remembering correctly, I don't have all my notes in front of me, that that is included in legislation that has already been upheld by the Supreme Court.
In Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
Okay.
It's my recollection, and I hope I'm not wrong there, but I think we can double check that. And that it's important because what we've heard is that landlords at lower fine levels would be happy to just proceed and take the fine.
I've heard that before too. Cost of doing business. Yeah, I've heard that as well. I don't want to delve into particulars of law weighing in because it is privileged. I only struggle with what we pass being defensible. And we do this with every piece of legislation that we author. We run the risk of it being challenged in courts. That's why there are 3 separate but equal branches of government. We do our best to legislate. If one would feel that they were wrong or we were outside of our purview, they have every right to seek relief within the judicial branch. My only concern and my only reservation with the actions that we take today is that we don't complicate, and that's difficult not to do, but that we do our very best to keep anything from being challenged within the courts, which is a huge charge. I understand that, I get that, because of the way it could affect one's seeking relief. That's the bottom line. And I believe in Councilwoman Gross's heart. I believe in Lindsay Powell's heart. The bottom line here is that what we seek is relief so that people are not evicted during the worst pandemic that we've seen in 100 years. And that's what this council is charged with. That's what the administration is charged with. And so I just want us to have as tight a verbiage as we can. It's not one versus the other. I just want us to have good, tight verbiage that we believe is defensible, and that the actions that we take today truly are in the best interest of supporting people that are facing eviction. All of us here have been incredibly blessed. I remind my staff every single day of the challenge in front of us, that we are all still employed. We are not facing evictions. There's a paycheck coming in. We have jobs, and that we have duty and obligation to whom much is given, much is expected. And so I do believe at the heart of what we're doing here is a sincere desire to protect those that are in harm's way. And my only wish is that today that the actions that we take and our collective verbiage does that. And for that, I'll leave my comments for that for now. I'm sure the conversation will continue, but I just wanted to put that out for discussion at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other members? Councilman Burgess.
So first of all, I want to thank Councilwoman Gross for her hard work in this matter. I believe, obviously, as all of us do, at this time of COVID, I have lost several church members. I have lost several friends. I have lost pastor friends from across the country and locally. And so all of us are feeling, in fact, I just got a call this morning, a former member of mine passed last night. And so the way our city works is we have a strong mayoral form of government. Typically, we get a working majority of council, at least 5, hopefully 6, work with the administration, and together come up with legislation that we can all agree with. I have been fortunate to be supported by council to pass, I think, probably the most legislation of any member. I don't know that to be a fact, but I think probably I have passed more original legislation on my time on council than any other member. And my process has always been that way. I'm willing to help since, obviously we do have a working majority, and we're not unilateral by any means. there is still work to be done. I wanted to do this quickly, but since that we are not willing to do that, then I think the most prudent process is to recommit this bill to tomorrow. Let's see over the next 2 days if we can work out a compromise that we can all agree with. We can recess today's general meeting and recommit this bill, work on it Wednesday, and then pass it finally after that meeting on Wednesday. We do not want to delay this, but I do think that we need to be realistic. That what we do, we are a second-class city, and I don't want to get into this at length today. We can do it later. We are a second-class city, which means we are not other cities. We're not Harrisburg. Harrisburg is not a second-class city. Therefore, we have very specific limitations on what we can do and not do. You have to be very careful in crafting legislation from other cities or using other cities as a priority because none of them are in Pennsylvania or us. Philadelphia is a first-class city. They're the only one. We're a second-class city. We're the only one. And so we're unique. So my suggestion is let's take some time. I would prefer to try to pass it tomorrow if we can. If not, here's what I don't want to do, especially in this crazy political time, right? We're in that political season. You heard that in public comments. But I'm always very fearful of giving false hope, right? I've seen, I don't want to do that for, my interests of those who are African-American, those who are poor, those who are hurting. I don't want to pass legislation that we cannot enforce, legislation that won't stand up, and then we do something to the applaud of a small group of activists. But in the long run, we do those really needy people no help. So I will stop, but that's my advice is that, again, I was uncomfortable with the amendment last week. I'd said last week I would pass and vote for the legislation. I will not at this point. I will not vote for the amendment. But my preference would be to simply recommit this bill for tomorrow. Let's work a day and see if we can come to a compromise that a majority of council and the administration can agree with. That is, I think good governance and something that law is comfortable with, so that we're also passing something that we believe as strong as possible meets the needs of the people we're trying to help. And so that's my advice and my suggestion of a way forward. But again, I will listen, and I will not vote for the amendment today, though. I will vote for the bill as is today. If that comes to a vote, I will not vote for amendment by substitution. But I am willing to work over the next day or two to come up with a compromise, if that makes some sense. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other members? Councilman Coghill.
Yes, thank you. I first want to start by saying, Councilwoman Gross, I really respect and admire your compassion and commitment to this matter. And it's not only this matter, whether we've had many talks offline about childcare, affordable housing, and you really are a champion, I feel, for the underprivileged and the poor. So through those many conversations, I will say you've made me a better counselor. So I thank you for that. I've been on both sides, when Councilwoman Gross is passionate about something, so I prefer to be on her side on this particular matter. I think your heart's in the right place. You're doing the right thing. So I will stand by your amendments today. I will support them. And I think it's also important to note that, the landlord's rights and their, position is not lost on Councilwoman Gross. We've had conversations with this. We want to help the landlords recover back rent, and try to get them, because many of them are also counting on, the rent money to pay their bills. So I just want to make sure that's not lost on everybody here. I think Councilwoman Gross takes that much in consideration as the people who are being evicted. So with that, I just wanted to thank you for all your hard work you did on this. You will have my support. Thanks.
Any other members? Councilman Wilson? No, I thought I saw you. Any other members?
Council President has her hand up.
Councilwoman Strasburg.
Thank you. So I think anyone who knows me knows that I don't just support legislation without fully understanding it. And so I took the time, many hours last week to fully delve into all the different amendments that have been proposed to us and understanding the reasoning behind it, understanding the bureaucracy of the eviction process a little bit more, and understanding the legality of different proposals before us. And over that time, I've become more and more comfortable and more convinced that this different approach of changing the burden of proof to landlords as opposed to tenants is the way to go here. This is not, oftentimes I feel very hesitant to do anything that's going to open us up to lawsuits. Not all the time, as people know from my, my and Councilman O'Connor's pushing forth the firearms ordinances. But oftentimes when it's a long-term ordinance, it's, you really want to consider all the long-term effects. I consider this to be an emergency, and specifically a public health emergency for those who are most vulnerable. As has been stated, landlords, property owners, they have assistance coming their way. And I think it is incumbent upon us, as Council President Cale Smith brought up to me this morning, it's incumbent upon us as council members and as the city in general to figure out the best way to provide the pipeline, the assistance to property owners and to tenants once that rental assistance is available. Both the short-term assistance, the one that's coming kind of from the city and county this month, and the one that's still coming a little bit later from the federal government. So we need to do everything we can to help those people get that assistance. But in the short term, I believe that the amendments as proposed by Councilwoman Gross last Wednesday are the way to go. And I'm comfortable with it, even given some of the risks here that it is doing it a different way, and it's not necessarily the way that was originally proposed. So given the public health emergency that we're in right now, this is what I feel comfortable supporting. And I also think it's going to be incredibly important for us to do a lot of work afterwards. I understand that we are going to have to work to bolster and provide resources to Commission on Human Relations. I understand that we're going to have to communicate very clearly to all the magistrates, and it's going to be an all hands on deck effort to do that, to make sure that they are working hand in glove with us. So I don't think the work ends here. I have to give credit where credit is due to all the activists who have been on the ground assisting people who have been evicted and walking them through the process. And, I see this as all different pieces of the same effort. So that's really what I wanted to say today. Thank you, Councilwoman Gross, for your advocacy. Thank you, Chief Powell, for your work on this, and the administration, and look forward to further discussion on this.
Thank you. Any other members?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Wilson has his hand up.
Councilman Wilson?
Yes, I want to thank everyone for working on this, and I just wanted to say that I want to be a part of something that does prevent any possibility of evictions in the future. I did want to kind of talk about something though, which is the actual implementation of it. And one thing I heard from the lawyer Robert Damewood in his public comment, which is the person who, Councilwoman Gross, tell me if I'm wrong, he was the one that was assisting with the amendments. He points out that we don't have the authority to tell the courts how to do their process. So then my question is, how do we have the authority to tell them not to accept landlord-tenant cases? And I guess I'm requesting a prerogative.
If the councilwoman's okay with it.
Thank you, appreciate it. So that's why it's important, I think, to vote on the amendment today and not the original ordinance. And I even have questions about the kind of last minute verbiage that we got last night from administration for that reason, because I feel like it sends tenants and landlords, right, to the courts to be the arbiter of our moratorium. Whereas the amendment that we have in front of us by substitution right now puts a kind of funnel before the eviction process that you are either in compliance with our ordinance because you have not filed for eviction, or you've gone to Human Relations Commission and you've gotten your exemption, and then you filed for eviction and you're in compliance with the ordinance. And so we've put the process, I keep motioning upward because I keep picturing it for my mind's eye like a funnel with a little neck of the funnel that feeds down before you get into the flow chart. And again, I've got a clean copy so I don't have to wave it in front of this, in front of the camera. Can you all see that? And so this notice to quit is kind of when I was referring to as, you know, the landlord kind of mailing something to or putting something on the door of a property. Sometimes what I didn't mention is that the tenant never even goes to court. The tenant just leaves. And we know that that is actively happening now too. And so that is not good for the tenant. That is not good for any of us. That is the tenant and her family and her kids either going to someone else's couch or going into a shelter or going we don't know where. And during this pandemic, that is not okay, right? We want to tell everyone to shelter at home. You need to have a home to shelter in. And we are, as we all mentioned, very lucky to be sheltering in our homes as we speak. The governor's original moratorium was up here. I'm not going to try to type in that box, but it was before, so people couldn't even do that notice to quit. Why is that important? Because when you get down here, it's already on your record. So that when you're trying to find a lease, you've already had an eviction filed against you. The current Judge Clark moratorium that dropped in the middle of last week is like aimed right at this in-between process where judges, the magistrates currently are kind of taking people into mediation or slowing down up to 6 weeks in this process. It's helpful, but it's after either of these two processes. The 120 people I referred to are literally already down here, right? They could be served at the premises at any moment. The 180 I were referring to are up here where they've had dates. The now 400 or so that are upcoming this month or next month have already had this. They've already had, they haven't left and they're already here. So actually I'm going to move this over because they're still in their property. So they're kind of doing this and have had a summons and are awaiting that court date. So they're right in there. So,
Yeah, I bring this, oh, sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, so what I can't do here is what I want to do is saying that like our funnel is up here before any of this happens. And that's critically important at this time so that tenants don't just choose to leave or they aren't forced into something that's already on their permanent record or proceed. And we I think shouldn't be putting the burden of our ordinance into, right, the way I read, and I've had discussions already last night and this morning meetings before we met here, we should not be putting those tenants and those landlords into that process to try to figure out, we shouldn't be sending landlords to court to figure out whether they can go to court or sending tenants to court to figure out whether they can go to court. It's not adding any value. And I think if we're trying to avoid harm, it could, we could stoke the filing process. We could be adding air to that so that there's actually more filings because we're telling landlords, well, you have to go to court to figure out whether or not you're in compliance with our ordinance. So that's why I think we should not be just, moving forward with the language that we got last night. I think that we vote through the amendments that we've all had for a week, the same ones that haven't changed, as Councilman Strasburger is supporting and Councilman Coghill is supporting, that I've just motioned to amend by substitution. If we move forward with that, we can still talk and still consider what needs to be adapted. And then also, as others have reminded us, this entire amendment of the eviction moratorium goes away in a hard stop the minute we no longer re-up our declaration of emergency. Moreover, in the very last section of the legislation, you scroll right to the bottom, we could just vote to end it, whichever comes first. All right, so I think that we need to kind of not put ourselves in the mindset where we've all of us on council together have been before, maybe not Councilman Wilson, of trying to decide, how far are we going to go in challenging state laws or stretching the boundaries of our authority. We are clearly we've declared a state of emergency for processes for the city. I drafted the legislation. I drafted the initial language back in January to go in that declaration. And my first call was to President Smith. And I said, this is what I'm working on. And this is language I have. She beseeched me to talk to the law department. She, in fact, asked for a law opinion. So we were persuaded to not do that, and persuaded to work now for a month on putting this in ordinance. And the law department has shouldered a large amount of that work. And here we are at this last critical juncture, deciding where I think, as I opened my statements, we're faced with trying to be the safest and doing too little, or trying to, I think, do what's right and do something we just haven't done before. I'm not going to say it's less safe or not okay. It's just that this is clearly something that is out of the ordinary for us. And
So your funnel
emergency.
so your funnel analogy, I like it. And, I definitely, even prior to this discussion, I was concerned about individuals that don't have, even before the pandemic, it was one of the first conversations I had with the Human Relations Commission, was the, the ding that can go on a credit score or a credit record. And, so that's been concerning as well. And that's something that I think we should generally follow up on. But, the funnel, even regardless if we pass the amendments, the funnel is only going to work if we get cooperation from the courts. Unless I know of what the actual authority is that's going to be able to tell all the magistrates that, you're not able to accept those.
We don't have to do that. They can do what they do, but the landlord would be out of compliance with our ordinance. And so then be subject to fine for $10,000. I found the scribbling piece of paper I've been scribbling on all week. So I can't put it up nicely on my share screen.
So we would fine the magistrate? I'm clear.
Yeah, the landlord would be out of compliance.
Okay. And is that something that the Human Relations Commission would be keeping track of, who files, and we would be going after them?
This ordinance tasks them with the policies and procedures so that if you're the landlord with a tenant who's a threat to themselves, to other tenants, or engaging in criminal activity, the initial legislation kind of lacked that pathway. And so it's, I think, fair. And we heard it in public comment last week. We heard it in briefings, that there are cases where, for the safety of the other tenants, it's important that we provide a pathway for that to be framed as like an appeal. And I think Councilman Strasburger said it the way some people have been saying it, like put the burden of proof, right? But it's basically putting that process in place.
Yeah, I understand how we'd like it to see it work. And So I'm interested to, that's why I was asking these questions on what the actual process would be. I know it's been mentioned that possibly it would have to come from Judge Clark to the court. That we would have to we would have to get a buy-in from this other system.
I actually think that's more true with the language that is not on the table right now. And so the language that we have in front of us by substitution makes that more of the burden on our action. But we still, in all cases, should invest moving forward from today in communicating to the clerks. I've certainly had conversations with Judge Clark. I know that the administration has conversations with Judge Clark. She's available. I've talked to her staff. So that's really been helpful. And we can each talk to our own magistrates. There's only 12 magistrates in the city. So they're easy to communicate to directly. And then the additional thing that I'm gonna just, if you'll indulge me, share screen to just point out where the constables come in, just very briefly. Down here at the bottom, can you see my cursor down here? This, when the landlord files a possession order, the constable may evict tenant, like forcibly remove, right? We can also communicate directly with the constables, and that was particularly effective in Harrisburg. The constables don't work for the courts at all. And they are not in the chain of command to the presiding judge or anybody in the judicial system. They are strangely, and I can't explain why, housed as, I think, even subcontractors to the executive branch. But we have, I think in making good policy, we move between the kind of platonic forms and then what's actually happening in our city that we know of in case. So in a kind of inductive and a deductive and an inductive, kind of fact gathering and evidence for judgment for what we should do for policy. And I think that is what we need to keep in front of us moving forward too, because we need to move quickly. We've already been debating this honestly for 6 weeks, while we've only had this legislation in front of us for the last week. And we don't have to stop here. So I'm not sure if I can say that any differently, or if that helped to answer your question.
Okay, no, I have no further questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other members?
Second round or still first round?
First round. Anybody else? Anyone else? Councilman Kraus, second round.
Appreciate the conversation. Always helpful. One thing I did hear that gives me reservation. I do not want to see us recommit the bill today. I think that is the easy way out. I think we just, I say this often, we are given the very difficult task of yes and no and not the privilege of maybe. There's decisions that need to be made. And from what I'm hearing from members today is that if we go ahead with these amendments today, that there are still open lines for communication to adjust if and as necessary. And that gives me comfort that we can do that. Sometimes I don't believe we fully understand the scope of our powers. And we can pull together at any chosen time, and we can make adjustments and improvements to the legislation, because again, I can't state this more firmly. I truly believe that at the heart of this council, at the heart of this mayor and this administration is to effectuate a positive change and action that will assist people that truly are on the verge of eviction in the largest pandemic in 100 years. So with that, let me add one more thing. And once again, if you'll permit interrogatory with the councilwoman,
Yes.
Councilwoman, you and I talked at length yesterday. I did share some reservation about the capacity for the Human Relations Commission to accept a large burden. If I can direct you to the direct language of under 78202 Section D, the Pittsburgh Commission on Human Relations shall develop procedures for accepting and reviewing requests. And so that language to me does not specifically, unless you can enlighten me differently, does not specifically charge them with the task of doing such, but rather because it doesn't set a time frame per se, but it charges them with developing the procedures for accepting and reviewing, not necessarily charged with accepting and reviewing. Am I reading too much into that?
Maybe. They're standing ready. I did talk to the director yesterday, late afternoon. And as he said at the table to us last week, and again in the Thursday briefing, he is down one staffer, and it could use another. Another capacity in the system is that that commission and other city departments often kind of pull in non-governmental partners that have the skill sets that are needed. So there is some skill and capacity for sure. Is the capacity stretching already because of the crisis? Absolutely. So like two names that I've heard, and I think there's a third I can't recall, which is a group called Just Mediation, which already has the staff with the skills that are already doing tenant landlord mediation, right? And so that skill set's already there. Is kind of the housing court specialists, right? There's capacity in the county, and then there's actually, so that was maybe the third, but I can't remember exactly the agency or the department. And then in the Housing Legal Services local organization as well. They are already doing work for us with screening for rent relief. So, we'll need to kind of see if that's the better path than human relations doing it in-house.
Okay.
Then thirdly, I would say that there have been very few cases. This section is very similar to Philadelphia, and there have been just a couple dozen and for basically a good 6 months. So a pretty long period, and in a much larger city than ours. Only if he doesn't have actually gone for the exceptions. Are we the same? Are we not? Can we expect that scale or a bigger scale? But we shouldn't, I believe, expect a deluge. So I'm hopeful about that.
So you and I talked at length yesterday, Councilwoman, about additional positions and my reservation about creating just additional positions. A friendly reminder to council, I'm almost embarrassed that I'm even going to say this, but we're under a pretty dire budget right now. And even though things look hopeful for the future with the new administration and relief coming into Western Pennsylvania, it's cash in a check before it's deposited. I'm not 100% comfortable with that. And I use the analogy that positions can be like taxes. Once imposed, they're very difficult to roll them back. So I still am on the outside of that conversation, but for the sake of today and our obligation, and I use that word strongly, our obligation to do our very best within our power to protect the constituencies that we serve, I think we're morally obligated to move this today. If it is the will of council to move it with the amendment, so be it, I will support it. But making this clear and on record that as a body, we have also decided to remain flexible and fluid. If we hit hiccups and bumps that are not in the best interest of the constituency we serve and protecting them from eviction, then we will absolutely make changes as necessary. And as fluid as this situation is, we as a council will remain as flexible and fluid in our response to it with the goal, and the only goal in mind is to protect the constituencies that we serve from eviction. Thank you. Appreciate allowing me to put that out there.
Thank you, Councilman. Great words too. Any other members? Councilman Coghill.
No, I just really had a comment. I just wanted to say, of the, 5 or 6 landlords that I've spoken to, all of which are really depending on the income that they get from their rent, and they have not been getting it, for the past 6 months to a year. But to a T, not one of them has the desire to evict their tenants, I will say. They're compassionate people. So I hope very much that we can pass this today with Councilwoman Gross's amendments. And I hope then we can focus on really advocating for rent relief for the landlords who truly need it. So with that, that's it.
Any other members?
And I, Madam President, if you, sorry.
Councilman Kraus?
Thank you. I want to piggyback on Councilman's remarks because we're not saying that enough. And as big a champion on the council as we have had is Councilwoman Gross in protecting, single small landlords. And I want to. I'm not advocating enough for balance. And I want to make certain that I put that out there, that it is balanced. We do want to protect landlords that are at risk. We do understand that they are trying to do business and meet their obligations and pay their bills as well too. And we do understand that there is relief on the way, but once again, check's not in the bank and we can't cash it until it is. And so I wanted to be known that this council is advocating balance. We always advocate balance, and this situation is no different. But this is a very dire situation right now, and the idea of eviction of constituency in this global pandemic is just that's not a risk that we can take at this point in time. But at the same time, I don't want landlords to think, as Councilman Coghill said, that we do not want to advocate for their health and well-being, financial health and well-being as well. But for
landlords who are letting me know they're refusing, they're not not evicting their tenants. And they're working with them, and they're waiting and trying to work through the assistance system.
They are.
Getting more assistance.
Any other members?
Yeah. Well, I didn't quite finish, but thank you, Councilman.
All I heard was two blurry things. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. But it's important to make sure that goes out there. But for today, what is important, and the challenge before this council is to make sure that this passes today, and we don't have another option. And I am ready to vote it, and appreciate members that are also ready to vote it as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members? So I just want to say, I think that Councilman Burgess also had the idea for recessing the meeting was because he and I spoke this morning, and this really initially did not have the votes for today. So I do want to say that he was trying to make sure that it did stay. So it wasn't voted down. So there was an opportunity for further discussion. I think that's where his thoughts were coming from. So I do want to thank Reverend Burgess for making sure that he spoke up and gave an opportunity for us to work through it and not just vote it down today. But since members seem to be more comfortable after having several conversations from early in the morning on, it seems like it's okay now. So, but I do want to say that I think that this does sunset. We're having a long conversation for something that's going to sunset, maybe even before the end of the month. And that there are, I do think that we need to make time to put together something over the next week where we have people helping landlords to process the CARES funding, any type of help that we can provide. I think that's very important. I think that it's also important to acknowledge Assistant Chief Powell, and she's still on here. And I know that she's being accused of dumping legislation at the 11th hour with the amendments at the 11th hour, and I know that's not accurate. And I think that's part of the problem we have, members repeating what's happening internally, what's happening with the law department, what's happening with one another, and people are getting some misinformation. So I just do want to give opportunity to Director Powell to comment on the 11th hour amendments. Director Powell. Chief Powell, I'm sorry.
There. Hi, everyone. I appreciate it, Council President. To your question about 11th hour amendments, obviously, this is a very complicated issue, as evidenced by us being in conversations about what we can do, what's permissible, but ultimately what's best for vulnerable tenants since January. Myself, folks from the team, the law department, and obviously Councilwoman Gross and other council people have been working diligently and clearly into the very night to make sure that we get this right. It's important to me personally and to the administration to make sure that whatever we put forward is something that, again, protects vulnerable tenants, to ensure that no one is out on the streets, as many people have said, in winter, in a pandemic. And so I appreciate everyone's work on this critical issue. I think that the amendment before you and the amendment that you received last night do both protect tenants in very different ways. It's a matter, obviously, of council's purview to decide exactly the best path forward. But each amendment, as I've looked at them, worked on them, and revised them, make sure that we're putting vulnerable tenants first, and has been a labor of love for a lot of people. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak, Council President. Again, I think it's incredibly important that we move forward in a way that is both defensible, but also ultimately able to ensure that our most vulnerable Pittsburghers are safe.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. Chief, I just wanted to make sure that you had a chance to say something, because you have worked very, very hard on this, along with Councilwoman Gross and the advocacy groups and a lot of people that came, the law department, a lot of people that were trying to make sure that this happened and to help make sure that we're taking care of our most vulnerable residents. But my concern has always been, as Reverend Burgess said, we don't want to give false hope to people. We want to make sure we're really giving real help and real opportunity to help people. And some of the landlords are very first-time, small time landlords, and this is going to put some of those people in some very difficult situations. Whether we want to pretend it's not happening or not, it may be happening, and it definitely is happening more with higher numbers for tenants, but it is also happening with smaller landlords. And to ignore that that's happening, it is just not okay either. But I do want to say that I do fear that what happens after COVID, and when some of these landlords possibly do lose their properties because they didn't even know how to access the CARES funding, and that we almost might be actually creating or adding to an affordable housing rental crisis, because there may not be property to rent once that much property to rent once some of these people lose their properties. So I do think that we have to do something, and I do know that Councilwoman Strasburg and Councilwoman Gross and I spoke this morning, and I spoke with members, Councilman Wilson, Councilman Burgess, O'Connor, Kraus. I tried to speak to everyone a little bit to this morning, but we did talk about ways that we can help people apply for the funding, to know what's available, and to get help and resources out to both sides so that we're not having any negative consequences from this legislation. I think that we'll take the time over the next week to do that. So I think that there's a lot to be said, but I do think Councilman Kraus said a lot, that this shouldn't be us versus them. This should be us together. This is when the city pulls together, not pitting one against the other, and to make it a political statements and saying comments about the mayor's race or the council people or something. That's not what this is about. This is about coming together and putting our own interests aside for the betterment of our residents. And I know all of us have been doing that, whether or not that message is getting out to advocacy groups or to others. That's to remain to be seen. But the fact is, we have been working very hard and trying to work very hard with those who are working together on this. So with that said, can we have the bills are now ready for final action. All in favor of the passage of the bills?
I'm sorry, Madam President, we have to vote on the amendment first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
President,
Yes, Councilman Burgess.
I'd like to have further discussion on the amendment, if you do not mind, for just a moment.
I'm sorry, Councilman Burgess.
Chief Powell. Hi, how you doing?
And yourself.
Fine, fine. So before I take what I think I'm going to do, I need you to help me understand that you wrote some amendments There is an amendment on the table by Ms. Gross. Those two amendments have some they're different. They're not the same, right? They're differing, right? And your preference would have been for those differences to be worked out, I'm assuming, not, or yes or no. Tell me what is your preference? What is your desire? Tell me, as representing the administration, I need to kind of know what it is you see the pathway forward looking like.
Sure. The amendments that you received last night are in response to the new moratorium, to concerns from council, but also input from community stakeholders. The original amendments that were put on the table, the actual draft ordinance that council saw, I guess at this point, a week and some change ago, had some spaces where we thought we could beef up to ensure that, again, we're getting to those tenants that we know are slipping through the crack through the previous court moratorium. In particular, as we've heard from activists and from public comment, the lease violation. So when we say, we've been using the same example where grandma has had her grandson in the unit and per the lease, it's not permissible and it would be cause for an eviction. But obviously in a pandemic in winter, predatory landlords may be using those types of cases to push someone through an eviction process when, again, in normal times, that person, would be fine, right? The amendments that were sent to you last night tries to address some of those concerns. There was also concerns from council about how property damage is included. It was included within the public commentary that there are instances where landlords have tenants that, may be precluded from eviction proceedings, but they're actually, destroying the unit or the rental unit beyond repair. And it's not just your, scratch or what have you. It's something that's a little more destructive. The amendments also were worked through with law department to make sure that they're able to be defensible, but also account for the capacity that we have currently within our city departments. They work to ensure that if we were to put forward a moratorium, that we'd be able to account for all of the folks that would be applicable underneath it. I see that the council person has lit up for me, Councilperson Gross.
I'm sorry, but I don't have the floor to talk to you, so my hand is up for the president.
I apologize. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I had to go plug my other phone in. Sorry.
I believe you gave the floor to Councilman Burgess, who has interrogatory with Lindsay Powell. But I would like to clarify that the legislation that is on the table in the substitution has also all of the responses that Director Powell is saying the language last night corrects for the original legislation. The amendment by substitution that we have on the table in front of us also provides those additional concerns. So it actually, if you can look at it, section B, part 3, other material breach of lease terms such as criminal conduct or damage to property, or other compelling bases not specifically enumerated herein, etc. So both are attempting to correct the deficits of the initial legislation and do so. As you heard in my opening comments, Director Powell believes that the amendments from 10:30 last night do so more safely. And I contend that they do so less robustly as to be ineffective. While the amendments that we're considering are potentially slightly less safe, but more robust.
Reverend Burgess has the floor.
Thank you. I like the interrogatory because I want us to be clear. So, Lindsay, anything else you want to add? I'm sorry.
No, I think that, Councilwoman Gross and I have had these conversations where, obviously both at the heart of both bills are ensuring that, again, vulnerable tenants are protected and that we have a way to create another release valve to get people out of any eviction proceedings. As the councilwoman has stated, there are two different approaches. One, the one that I put forward really has an eye for understanding our current capacity as it pertains to creating a new exemption system. And also, there is the presumption that the bill sent to you last night may be more defensible if it were challenged. But I am not a lawyer. I always like to say that, not a lawyer. And I think are truly two different policy approaches to the same question.
So, I know that right now the CHR that we're now going to give some capacity to participate in this process has already said it does not have the capacity to do that, right? So I'm assuming at some point sooner or later we're going to have to fund them, or there'll be a legislation on the table to fund them to gain them capacity. So I'll tell you, I'll explain sort of my position. I've always been very consistent about this, period. That, I'm going to always side with the comfortability of the law department. I have almost always in my time on council, 100% said that. I think, it took me it took me 18 months to craft legislation that did annual reporting with the police. We had weekly meetings for 18 months to come up with a bill that we could both agree with, 18 months. Some of the bills that I've worked on took a long time. So I will not support the amend version. I think the way we're doing this is unfortunate. I think we have time, plenty of time to work out a compromise, but there doesn't seem to be the appetite to do that, to work out a compromise that makes law comfortable. A federal judge just struck down, as you know, the federal judge just struck down the national eviction moratorium. And so the only thing they're going to have is these local protections. So we have to make sure they're right. But if we want to rush and do that, that's fine. I will abstain from the amendment. I think the way we're doing this, as I've said before, is not the way to do it. I've sort of told you the way forward, but there's not an appetite for that, perhaps. I will vote yes in favor of it because I'm in favor of moratorium. At the end of the day, whatever's on the table, I will vote yes. Because I am mostly concerned about poor, needy people, many of who are African American. I am more concerned with them than the minutia of dueling amendments and of dueling amendments. I just think that a day to craft out a compromise for it that strengthens it for legal objections is wise. I don't know. I tend to be very uncomfortable when I have the law department telling me that they are fairly sure or suspect that legislation is going to be challenged. All our legislation gets challenged, and we win some, we lose some, right? But a day to strengthen it of something this important, I think, is worthwhile. But at the end of the day, whatever's on the table, I will vote for. I will abstain from this amendment because I would prefer to have, and let me keep going. I have great respect for Lindsay and for her ability to craft legislation. We've done lots of work together, right? And drafting and writing together. And so I know her skill level at doing this. And so I take her work very seriously and support it. And so I would prefer to have crafted some compromise or work on a compromise. But again, I will abstain from this amendment but whatever is finally on the table, I will vote in favor of. And so I wanted to at least explain my vote mechanically, so that I am consistent with all my other votes. Thank you for this moment.
Thank you, Reverend. And I'm just gonna say that I think we all feel the same way about Lindsay, but have a lot of respect for her. So any other members? This is about the amendment.
Madam President, briefly, I promise.
Councilman Kraus.
I'm not going to share Law's opinion because it is attorney-client privilege, but even with the Second Amendment that was offered, there's still some minor reservations around what we really are legally entitled to do and what we're not entitled to do. So I will continue to advocate for, it's important we move today, but it is equally as important to remain flexible and fluid and adjustable every bit as much as the situation is, to ensure, bottom line, we're protecting constituency from eviction. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members? I'm just going to say, I think that before we vote, I'm just going to say that I think Councilman Kraus, Burgess, and I, and anyone who has some concerns can work on some amendments, and we can amend the bill if we need to, or do what we need to do over the next week, working with the law department and Lindsay Powell. So
and
now
Councilwoman Gross. And Councilwoman Gross.
Well, she's had that opportunity too. Can we have a roll call vote with the amendments, please?
Reverend Burgess.
Dang.
I'm sorry.
Dang.
Mr. Coghill.
Aye.
Ms. Gross.
Aye.
Mr. Kraus.
Aye.
Mr. Lavelle. Mr. O'Connor.
Aye.
Ms. Strasburger.
Aye.
Mr. Wilson.
Aye.
Mrs. Kell Smith, President.
Aye.
Aye, 7, 1 abstention.
So the bill has been amended. And now the final votes on all the bills, including the amended bill for the moratorium.
Reverend Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Coghill.
Aye.
Ms. Gross.
Aye.
Mr. Kraus.
Aye.
Mr. Lavelle.
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor.
Aye.
Ms. Strasburger.
Aye.
Mr. Wilson.
Aye.
Mrs. Kell Smith, President.
Aye.
Ayes 9, no 0.
The bills having received the legally required number of votes are finally passed. And that moves us on to Councilman Burgess, or Committee on Urban Recreation.
Councilman Reverend Burgess presents Bill number 1242, Report of the Committee on Urban Recreation for February 24, 2021, with an affirmative recommendation. Bill number 1193, resolution providing for an amended lease agreement for the use of the West End Senior Center located at 80 Wabash Street and for the provision of center services to seniors in an amount not to exceed $45,673.64, chargeable to and payable from the Seniors Community Program Trust Fund in the Department of Parks and Recreation. The city is in the process of purchasing 80 Wabash Street from the property owner Smith and Bowen, and will continue to pay rent as authorized hereunder until the transaction is complete.
You've heard the reading of the title of the bill. Is there any discussion on the bill?
Madam President?
Yes.
I might be out of order. I apologize. I just wanted, I do have to leave, so I want to respectfully ask for counting the aye for this and all future bills up today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Madam President,
Councilman.
I also have to jump off. So I also want to just register an aye vote for all remaining bills.
Thank you, Councilman. Madam Clerk, do you have those?
Noted.
Thank you. And where were we? I don't remember.
Just a roll call vote.
Oh, just a roll call vote. All in favor of the passage vote aye when the name is called. Those opposed will vote no. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Reverend Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Coghill.
Aye.
Ms. Gross.
Aye.
Mr. Kraus.
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor.
Aye.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mrs. Cal Smith, President.
Aye.
Ayes 9, no 0.
Thank you. The bills have received the legally required number of votes, are finally passed. Councilwoman Gross, Committee on Intergovernmental Affairs.
Madam President,
Councilwoman Gross presents Bill number 1243, Report of the Committee on Intergovernmental Affairs for February 24, 2021, with an affirmative recommendation. Bill number 1198, Resolution adopting the plan revision to the City of Pittsburgh's official sewer facilities plan for the Baumhaus Phase 2 project, which will involve the development of 198 multi-unit apartment complex with associated indoor amenities, as well as a leasing office. The site address is 5536 Baum Boulevard in the 8th Ward. Bill number 1199, resolution adopting plan revision to the City of Pittsburgh's official sewer facilities plan for the North Shore Parking Garage. Bill number 1200, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Human Resources and Civil Service to enter into an agreement with Goodwill of Southwestern Pennsylvania for administrative services related to the 2021 Learn and Earn Summer Youth Employment Program at a cost not to exceed $200,000. Bill number 1201, resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of the Department of Human Resources and Civil Service to enter into an intergovernmental corporation agreement with the County of Allegheny and partner for work for the shared operation and administration of the 2021 Learn and Earn Summer Youth Employment Program in an amount not to exceed $1,500,000.
You've heard the reading of the title of the bills. Is there any discussion on the bills? Seeing none, the bills are now ready for final action. All in favor of their passage will vote aye when the name is called. Those opposed will vote no. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Reverend Burgess,
Aye.
Mr. Cahill,
Aye.
Ms. Gross,
aye.
Mr. Kraus,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mrs. Cal Smith, President.
Aye.
Ayes 9, no 0.
The bills having received the legally required number of votes are finally passed. And that moves us on to motions and resolutions. And I have a meeting announcement. Council will meet tomorrow morning, Wednesday, March 3rd, for the standing committees meeting at 10 a.m. To register to speak, please fill out the sign-up form in its entirety on the council meetings webpage by 9 a.m. Wednesday morning. You may also register by calling the city clerk's office at 412-255-2138 by the registration deadlines. Please be advised that tomorrow's post-agenda discussion has been postponed and a new date will be posted once it has been determined. And do we have anything from members?
Madam President,
Councilwoman Gross.
I just want to thank council and acknowledge how difficult this conversation is. And I've acknowledged several times that the court system itself is incredibly confusing and difficult. And it's difficult enough for us to figure out how to work to further protect tenants. And so I can only imagine what it feels like for the tenants themselves who are facing eviction. I also want to say that there was 6 weeks of work that brought us to this point. Again, starting with the idea to do what Harrisburg did, which was an insertion of a text into the Declaration of Emergency. Again, I called Councilwoman Smith first and said, I want to work on this. I have language. And we were discouraged. She discouraged me from doing that until law was comfortable, and law discouraged council from moving forward with the Declaration of Emergency amendment, and that advised us to work on the ordinance. We did 4 long weeks of work on working on the ordinance language. And I especially appreciate that council took the time last week to do the briefing, and thank you, President Smith, for setting up the briefing on Thursday and the executive session so we could talk to the solicitors. And a special shout out to Councilman Lavelle, Councilwoman Strasburger, Councilman Wilson, and Councilman O'Connor's staff who attended the briefing. And then Councilwoman Strasburger and Councilman Wilson again attended the executive session with me. That's a tremendous number of hours and resources on top of the many conversations that we've had between ourselves as members, one-on-one conversations with the administration, with attorneys, and with other members. And so I appreciate that we are not going to stop talking about this, and that we will continue to try to expand the effectiveness of a moratorium on evictions so that it is just for both public health, for the tenants, for the families, and also for the landlords who have a just cause. Appreciate it. That's all, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Kraus.
Thanks, Madam President. Madam Clerk, quick question for you. Could we, something happened in public comment today that in my now 14th year, I've never seen happen before. And that was someone coming to public comment to use that platform to sell the city goods and services. And the last thing I want to do is put anything further on the law department. But if we could just send out a request to, could they advise the council as to first, and I'm treading lightly here, First Amendment right to come to speak at public comment, but can that platform truly be used to sell the city goods and services? Because boy, that would be a dangerous precedent to set. You like that, Councilman Coggo?
I do.
Yeah,
I was thinking of plugging something myself in the morning.
I just never saw anything like that before. So that's all. If you would please, Madam Clerk, I'd appreciate their thoughts on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members? And I know this is a long meeting, so I'm just going to end it with, I know that this has been a very tense meeting and sometimes a lot of concern and a lot of comments coming forward. And I just want to say, I think that I do take a lot of this, somewhat, I'm very sensitive to it because I think I was probably one of the few people on council that actually needed help when I was young. I was a young mom, then I was a young widow with 2 kids, and I needed help from a lot of people. So when people use issues like this in any way that I feel like is exploiting people or political in any nature, or they come in here with misinformation, it takes 5 members of council to make anything happen. And it is a strong mayoral form of government. And it takes working with the mayor to get things done. So when people come in with misinformation, I feel very sensitive about it because I think 1, it's inaccurate and it's unfair. And 2, I think that it is something I never want to see people in need ever used or exploited for anyone's political agenda, none of ours. And I mean, if you've ever been in that situation, then you know how painful and how nerve-wracking it can be, and how terrifying it could be. And then to think that there's hope, and then to find out that somebody just used you for some political agenda, it's not something that makes you feel good. And I never want to be a part of that. And I don't think that members want to be a part of that. I just think that sometimes misinformation gets pushed around or spread out there. That just is inaccurate and unfortunate. So that's my only comments. But with that said, can I have a motion to excuse the absent members, approve the minutes, and adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
Safe, everyone.